this time. And now with that, I want to bring in a true hero. This is a defector from, she was at the P3 lab in Hong Kong. Dr. Yan, you've seen her on Fox News. You've seen her with Bill Hemmer. You've seen her on Fox Online. Dr. Yan, thank you very much for joining us at the Falkirk Center Freedom Summit today.
It's always a pleasure to meet you, sir, and thank you for inviting me to War Room.
Listen, you've inspired so many people just with your heroic story of what you did to leave Hong Kong and come and tell the story in the West. But specifically, I want to ask a couple technical questions. Tell us about the P3 lab you worked in Hong Kong. What was its role, and particularly what was its role in overseeing or looking at anything that was going on in mainland China?
So the P3 lab I work in Hong Kong actually belong to the University of Hong Kong and the School of Public Health. So the head, Prof. Pieris Malik, and also the other head, Professor Liu Peng, both of them are the WHO consultant for both emerging disease influenza and also new coronavirus. And we are the WHO reference lab. This lab is a top coronavirus lab in the world, and these two experts are the top corona experts in the world. So basically in this lab, we are capable to produce and also analyze all the type of the emerging virus.
The reason this lab is so important, and the reason it's the correspondent lab to the WHO, SARS that happened in the early part of the 21st century had such potential to destroy China that's what this was set up. And Dr. Gabriel Jung, we talked about him. He's the epidemiologist associated with it. This is one of the most prominent locations in the world for doing this, and it's the reason the WHO. The reason we're laying this out, the mainstream media now wants to kind of totally distance themselves from the WHO. So tell us your story. You really are saying that the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, and their whether it's the Beijing CDC, the entire chain of command knew about the outbreak of this virus in Wuhan and Hubei much earlier than they let on, that they knew about it actually in late December, early January. Explain that.
Okay, actually, since the end of December, 31 December 2019, my supervisor, Prof. Liu Peng, assigned me to do some secret investigation about the unknown pneumonia happened in Wuhan. He clearly told me face-to-face that there is unknown pneumonia happened in Wuhan, and it is caused by some SARS-like virus. And we want to know more information. He need to write the report to Hong Kong government. But actually, there are no official news come from mainland China. So I use my background because I got my PhD and MD from mainland China. I have the huge network in Chinese hospital and also government and research institute. So I turned to my friend and who work under China CDC, had the first hand of information. He told me, as I called, since the end of December, the China government already knows there are over 40 cases confirmed in Wuhan, not as they said 27, and also they got the genome sequence already from Wuhan, not as they stated in the middle of January. And the other thing, most important thing is there are human-to-human transmission exists, and there are family clusters happened. So these are all the key points that I know at that time, and also the Wuhan doctors are very scared. They dare not to say anything, just ask people to wear masks. And I reported to Liu Peng and WHO.
Okay, I just want to make sure we break this down for a second. During this time, people got to remember, I think it was January 14th and 15th, Li He and a delegation of the senior cadre of the Chinese Communist Party was right down the street in the White House, in the East Room, shaking the hand of the President of the United States and signing the first phase of the China deal. Now, I just want to go back, and Dr. Yan, to make sure I understand this. You're saying in late December, early January, they knew that they had an outbreak in Wuhan and Hubei province, okay? They knew that they had community spread, human-to-human transmission. You can prove that, and that all happened in the early part of January of 2020.
Exactly, they can prove it.
Okay, and so they came here. What I think people find shocking, you're at a reference lab. Really, a reference lab is kind of, I guess, the supervisory lab to make sure that what's going on in these P3 and P4 labs in mainland China is okay. But on January 12th, the WHO puts out a press release and says, after consultation with senior medical officials from mainland China, the CCP, there's no community spread, there's no human-to-human transmission. Then they tweet out on the 14th, they tweet out the same thing. The exact day, one of the days that the delegation from the Chinese Communist Party is having dinner with their American counterparts here. So was the WHO, did you guys in Hong Kong not get them the right information? Were they lying? Was the CCP lying to them? How did the WHO put out those two proclamations basically publicly when you're saying this was all known 2 weeks or 3 weeks beforehand?
So this also make me surprised at the time, because I know that definitely the WHO experts already know this news, and the CCP government know it even earlier than them. And I don't know why they all collaborate together to hide the truth to the world. And also that's why when mid-January, my supervisor Liu Peng again assigned me to do more secret investigation about this, and I got information. I see no response from him. Then I turned to tell the truth through YouTube media, Mr. Lude, and tell the world in Chinese about the news.
Were you ever, we're going to have to jump to a break, but we want Dr. Yan to stay over. We're going to be coming to Miles Guo in the next segment also, but I need Dr. Yan to stay through. Were you ever, first you're assigned to find out what's going on, right, as the head lab technician. Then you start finding out, and it contradicts with what the WHO is putting out.
Exactly.
Are you warned? Did anybody, I mean, do you go to your supervisor and say, hey, there's a big disconnect between what the truth is and what's coming out? And do they say anything to you?
Yes, exactly. So since the beginning of the investigation, my supervisor told me to be careful. And then in the middle of January, exactly on 16 January, when he again asked me to do the investigation, he told me that, I quoted him, don't cross the red line and be careful, if not you will be disappeared.
Dr. Yan, when somebody tells you not to cross the red line, what in your interpretation as someone from mainland China, what is that? What's your interpretation of that?
Okay, briefly, let me introduce what is a red line. Actually, there is no visible line. It is in our mind, and it is up to how you understand our CCP policy. And whatever they don't like you to talk or don't want you to touch, it is a red line. And somehow, you sometimes don't know you already go across it, and you get punished, as we know Dr. Limeng Liang.
So they essentially threaten you. Okay, I want to turn back to Raheem Kassam to take us out. We're going to come back with Dr. Yan in a minute. We got Miles Guo next segment also. Back to Raheem.
Well, thank you, Steve, and thank you, Dr. Yan, the true hero standing up here on stage at the Falkirk Center's Freedom Summit, protecting the Republic from all enemies, foreign and domestic. And I want to remind people that there are some real heavy hitters on the stage today. You're not going to want to miss any part of the day. You've got Frank Gaffney, Rosemary Gibson, Charlie Kirk, Dave Bratt, Senator Ted Cruz, and more. We'll be covering it all on America's Voice.News. War and Pandemic returns with Steve Bannon, Jack Maxey, Raheem Kassam, Dr. Yan after this break.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Well, welcome back to the Presidential Ballroom here at the Trump International Hotel in downtown Washington, D.C., where we're hosting the War and Pandemic show live from the Falkirk Center's Freedom Summit. We had a great first day of speeches and panels, action-orientated interviews here yesterday, and we've got another whole day lined up for it. So you're not going to want to go anywhere after War and Pandemic ends. Make sure you stick around on America's Voice. I want to now throw it back to Stephen K. Bannon and Dr. Yan.
Yeah, I think this is one of the questions that people have, Dr. Yan. You know, we're literally 2 blocks from the White House. We're in a hotel, a magnificent hotel. The old post office turned into a great hotel by Donald Trump. You're here at the Falkirk Center. We've got great freedom fighters. It's the Freedom Center. This is really a gathering of the China hawks over the next 2 days, right? Later after us, you're going to have the Committee on the Present Danger in the Economic War Room with Kevin Freeman. Just a magnificent day capped by Ted Cruz. What I think people can't understand is Hong Kong University is a revered institution. This P3 lab is kind of revered too. That's why it was a reference lab by the WHO. Dr. Gabriel Loon, Malik, these people are the top of their profession. In fact, they are known as the SARS hunters. The whole purpose of the lab and the prestige of Hong Kong University is because they were so great in finding out about SARS and finding out everything we need to know about SARS. And SARS is such a problem, potential problem, that we know now with the CCP virus is only SARS-2. Why is it that someone that ran actually the technical side of the laboratory, why couldn't you come public and state your case in Hong Kong? Why did you have to flee in the dark of night to the United States?
Because once I start to tell it out in Hong Kong, I will immediately get disappeared, like all the Hong Kong protesters who get disappeared without their names even. That is very terrible because CCP government now control both mainland China and overseas, not only for even Chinese-speaking place. And I know, as you guys all know, that censorship for all over the world. So they don't like people to tell any truth against CCP regime, even it's the real truth. I mean, they just want people to know what they want you to know, like how the animal can spread the SARS-CoV-2, which is totally lie, and like how the SARS-CoV-2 come from nature, which is also another lie. And their publication from Bad Woman Shi Zhenli about RATG13 virus, which is a fabricated virus, now being questioned by a lot of researchers. But these letters, this report cannot get published because of the censorship in the scientific field.
So, Dr. Yana, and when you say disappear, you mean disappear like sent to the mainland and put in a prison somewhere. That's what's happening to the Hong Kong freedom fighters. That's what, Dr. Yan, you said you're concerned about. One last question, because I know you're going to be doing a lot of media over the next couple of weeks. Is this, in your best professional knowledge, is this virus something that naturally came out of a fresh market in Wuhan, or is this something you think is somehow either through a gain-of-function experiment or somehow with some sort of weapons program or whatever came out of the lab in Wuhan? Is this natural or is this not natural?
Before I answer this question, let me briefly introduce my background. I have my clinical medical degree from mainland China and also got my PhD degree in China. And then I turned to the University of Hong Kong to do the virology and immunology research. I also focus on the vaccine development. And since SARS-CoV-2 happened, I work in the WHO lab for the COVID-19 research. So according to my research experience, and I can say that, and all the intelligence and information I got, I can tell you that's definitely not come from nature, and also that's definitely not come from the Wuhan Huanan seafood market, because all the evidence I got shows that there are no animal hands left in any sample when they checked before they do the thorough cleaning of the Wuhan seafood market. But why CCP government insists that all the patients have to get the Wuhan seafood market history before they get diagnosed even in January? Why? They know at least 1/3 of patients don't have this history. They haven't been to the Wuhan seafood market, and they didn't get any animal hint from these samples. Only one sample from all the 30 samples, environmental samples they get from the seafood market has some virus detected. And these samples are not detected by the real experts from overseas or even Hong Kong. It's just done by the CCP government, and then they show the result to the world and tell you, come on, this is from China's animal. Some animal, maybe people eat bat, eat rat, and eat all the poor animals, innocent animals. They don't know how to speak. They cannot fight with CCP. So they are the scapegoats. So I don't think it can come from nature, and they cannot find the evidence now. Now see how the Bad Woman Shi Zhenli got the interview from Science recently. She herself cannot answer this question. She just let you to do the research for years and years, and say, see, we know there is definitely host, and you need to go to find the bat, you need to go to find the source. But why don't they go back to check the possibility it can come from some lab? I mean, I'm now preparing a very solid scientific report to show people that how easily this can be done from the lab, and even not need to come from the very high technique lab. This is something actually using the mature technique, and also if you have the material, which we see here as the SARS-CoV-2's backbone virus, this is the only virus which is owned by CCP, by their PLA labs, and with these things, you can make it within half years. That's so easy.
This is what the CCP is not going to be able to stand up against, is the truth. You know, from facts come truth, and you're hearing it from Dr. Yan. We're going to be having her do a lot of media over the next couple of weeks. But if you thought, Dr. Yan, the CCP tried to disappear you wait till the mainstream media starts to tear you apart. So you're a hero. I think it's amazing what you've done. You've left your home to come here to the United States to make sure the people of the United States are warned about this, the people of the world are warned about this, that Chinese citizens are warned about this, that the lies of the Chinese Communist Party, if they're allowed to go unanswered, are only going to lead to more and more death and destruction. I want to thank you. This is the first of many. Dr. Yan, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Great honor to have you here.